So we have recent news that North Face and Macy's are leaving San Francisco and so many other businesses left. As a native San Franciscan, how does that make you feel?
It's terrible. We are the greatest city in the world, in the greatest country in the world. And to see what's happened over the last couple of years, it's devastating when you see companies leaving, when you see the hotels, when you see the streets, the filthy streets, when you see the Macy's, Nordstrom, all these major retailers leaving the city. And also, the crime. Everybody talks about the crime, the break-ins, the crime, the drugs. It's ridiculous. How much is being spent on the homeless? How much is spent on the homeless from fire, police? When you look at it all that's spent on the homeless. Nobody knows what these nonprofits are doing. How many people are they servicing? What are they doing? But they get the contracts. I mean, there's no accountability.
Hello and welcome to Bay Area Innovators. I'm your host, Steve Ispas. Our guest today is John Farell. John has been in the real estate business for 35 years. He has also been working for the city and county of San Francisco for Mayor Frank Jordan, as well as Harvey Rose and the Board of Supervisors. He has also been an assistant assessor for the city. Our topic today will include discussions on budget, real estate, as well as policy. John, welcome to our program.
Steve, thank you for having me.
Glad you're here. So I want to talk to you about the recent election, the recent San Francisco election. You're a fifth generation San Franciscan, so you and your family have pretty much seen it all. Now, during this last election, we've tended to see a shift from the far left more towards the center. Is this something that's cyclical, you think, or it's here to stay?
Well, I think over the years with everything that's happened, with the pandemic, with the defunding the police, people are realizing we're fed up. So basically you saw a shift from there's more moderates that, let's take into account the Democratic Central Committee. 4 years ago, there were only 2 moderates on a board that were elected on a board. The other 22 were very, very progressive. This last election, there were more 18 moderates that got onto the board. So we saw a swing there, which will help in the direction of the city in the future. And then when you look at some of the propositions, you had Proposition B, which basically they wanted to get a special, in order to get the police up to where they should be, there was going to be a special tax. Now, people said no to that. Because why would you get a special tax? This is what the taxpayers pay their property taxes for, to have safety, to have protection, and police is a priority. Police should always be fully staffed and should always be there for the city. And then also there was a Proposition F, which kind of minimized, which also helped with police. Police do a lot of reporting on what they do. This minimized how much they have to report now. I mean, they're trying to get it down to 20%. So there was a lot of positives in the direction. So the city has a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, actually, the proposition about the police to have less paperwork involved,
yes,
right? That's
yes.
what happened. We had someone on this program, Rich Cibodi. He's with the SFPD, and he was telling us how much paperwork the police officers have to go through every day.
Something. Yeah, they do.
So this obviously helps them.
It helps them dramatically. We need police to do their job and to minimize that type of paperwork.
So going back to the results of the election and the shift towards the center, do you think this is cyclical, like, in the future is going to shift back, or is it here to stay, or from your experience?
Everything changes, but right now, with everything that's happened, I can see this. We have to get San Francisco back on its feet. We are the greatest city in the world, in the greatest country in the world. And to see what's happened over the last couple of years, it's devastating when you see, companies leaving, when you see the hotels, when you see the streets, the filthy streets, when you see the Macy's, Nordstrom, all these major retailers leaving the city. It's been terrible. And also, the crime. Everybody talks about the crime, the break-ins, the crime, the drugs, the fentanyl, all these things. Now, this needs to be addressed, and it can be, so.
As a real estate expert, please talk to us about the vacancy that exists in downtown San Francisco. I think it's something like 37%.
Yeah, 37% vacancy down in retail. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of people in default. You see a lot of that happening. You have that's hitting one of the most, when we have a property tax hit, we have a lot of people who are going in now for assessment appeals to have their property reduced in value. I think there's about 6,000 to 7,000 now that were applications to get those reductions. That tremendously hurts the city. The city has a $15 billion budget, and they're expecting they're looking at a $1 billion deficit over the coming years. And with this is a dramatic hit to the general fund.
How do those applications get approved? Is it just the city reviews them to lower the value of the property?
What happens is the applicant files it with the assessment appeal board. Then they set a time in the future where they do it. When I was there, I used to work in the assessor's office. A lot of times what they used to do is do a stipulation where they come in, we work them, we clear them out. We sit down with the applicants. We look at all the paperwork. We basically review, your cap rates, everything in regard to the appraisal, and come up with a meeting of the minds with what's the value there. I mean, we're there. The assessor's office is there to protect the values for the city. So you want to keep as much value as on, which provides the revenue to our services, police, fire. So we do everything we can there. So.
What would you say to take for the businesses to come back to San Francisco?
Well, it's interesting. You have to look at the gross sales. You have to look at the gross receipts tax. You look at all these taxes that we have. Do we have to drop all those to get the businesses back in? I mean, years ago, when Ed Lee was mayor, he brought Twitter in. They had the Twitter tax where they had the reduction there. You have to get the businesses back. You have to drop the taxes. You got to give the incentives. You have to do that in order to get back.
And how about crime? Crime would also have to be
Yeah,
reduced.
exactly. It had to be reduced. You have to get rid of the crime. You have to, we recently had the Apex in the city, the Asian Pacific Economic Summit, where the streets were cleaned and everything was taken care of. But businesses were complaining for years and years. Why take care of our streets? The result is, these businesses wouldn't be leaving, and we wouldn't have to be doing this with the tax if we took care of our businesses. So they shut down businesses. They put people working remotely. That was a call that was made, and that's you're seeing the adverse effect on that now.
Yeah, many people said that, if they wanted to, it can be done as far as cleaning up the city, because during APEC, that's exactly what happened.
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of citizens were frustrated at that. And you can't blame them. You can't blame them.
So we have recent news that North Face and Macy's are leaving San Francisco, and so many other businesses left. As a native San Franciscan, how does that make you feel?
It's terrible, because these people, there was a letter from the owner from Gumps who put it. He put it out. I think he took it out in the Chronicle, where he just laid it all out. He was talking about the filth, the drugs, the homeless. I mean, for years, even small business, they're please give us safe streets, give us this, and that's why so many people were upset with this Apex. Here they're for President Xi of China, they're cleaning up everything, but not for the taxpayers. And what's happened is we've lost a lot of, and of course, I mean, you take into account that, Amazon, you can buy things online, things change, but most of these are all direct of the not feeling safe when you're coming out stores, with the homeless, with the drug addicted, with the poor people, the mentally addicted. And you have to take care of people. But where do we get the treatment centers? Well, here you go. You got 37% of commercial downtown. They want to make them into residential. Why not treatment centers? Why not shelters for people? We need our streets safe. We need our streets clean. That's priority to the taxpayer. Okay? That's what they want to see. That's why they were pissed off at the Apex. Here they are cleaning up for this. And there's a huge election in November, okay, which is going to lead, and to me, it's the heart and soul of San Francisco. And we're looking at, are we going in the right direction?
I listened the other day to the district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, and
right.
From what she's saying, it looks like she really wants to make a change. She sees the problems and she's trying to address it.
Right.
do you think she's doing the right thing, the right direction? And is there anything else
Well,
she
you
can
have to
do?
get, you have to give her time. You give people, and one thing I wanted to especially say about London Breed, basically, she defunded the police, okay? She defunded the police, which was the in thing to do in a lot of the cities throughout the United States. Defund the police. By defunding the police, you demoralize the police department. And you demoralize, that's why people were leaving the police department and don't want to become. And again, like I said, this is a November election. In November, there's 2 other candidates that are running at this time. I know there's more people probably going to get into the race, but right now there's Mark Farrell, who was the interim mayor and was a former Board of Supervisor member. And there's Dan Lurie, who basically was the founder of Tipping Point and has done wonderful things for housing and homelessness. And those are the 2 there. So I mean, here you go into ranked choice voting. If it was with Dan and Mark, you'd go 1-2. You have to go 1-2. Some people vote for 1. No, you have to go 1-2 because we need to get this city back on track. And when you look at some of the things now, a lot of things that are being done are all too late. They're all done for political reasons. Okay, we're going for our police. Getting more police. We're like the propositions that pass. We're trying to minimize the hours of police and all this to make it look like we're moving ahead. We're working with the police. You need a leader of a city who's behind the police 110%. And that police department provides the safety for the city and county of San Francisco. And it also provides safety to people who need to be protected. And by not having police, you're hurting the places that need it most, like the Hunters Point and people. You need your police. You need police to make sure things are taken care of. You're hurting people who need help.
I think most people agree with this right now, but you're right. A few years ago, after the George Floyd events, the pressure for different cities to defund the police was huge.
Yeah.
So would you say that a true leader would not cave into pressure?
Oh, no. A true leader would have said,
listen,
this is a bad apple. This guy's a bad apple, okay? Do you know as a result of that, do you know how many policemen were killed? Okay? All the things that were burned down? More, what is it? I don't want to get into this stuff because the bottom line is we are the greatest country in the world. United we stand, divided we fall. Okay? And that's what it's all about. They're trying to divide us up into looking at these things, and I refuse to do that. We all bleed red, and we're all God's children. Okay? They try to divide us to look at color, to look at this. Morgan Freeman said it great. He said, hey, you know how to get rid of racism? Don't talk about it anymore. And we got to take care of people. I remember Frederick Douglass says it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. We have a lot of broken people on the street. And these are like, look at them like rescues. These are people that need to be rescued. These are people hurting. For whatever reason they're hurting, whether it's mental, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's, and a lot of people out there, probably most people, are within 1 month of not paying a rent or mortgage. Okay? So, I mean, we got to take care of each other. We got to stay together, and we got to work this through. And we have the greatest city in the world and the greatest country in the world. And we can do it. We just have to be on the right direction, and we got to just work it.
Let's talk about the budget more. As you mentioned, San Francisco budget, $14.6 billion, $1 billion deficit. San Jose has a budget of $3 billion, so it's 5 times less. Is it that the money cannot solve the problems? No matter how much money there is, it still cannot solve the problems that San Francisco faces?
Well, when you look at the problems, first of all, we have a $15 billion budget. Remember, we have an airport, we have the water department, we have all these. We're a city and a county, where most are not. I think we're the only one or two in the United States that's a city and a county. What we have to do is we have to really tighten our belts. We look at, basically what I would recommend is the city would do a zero-based budget as of, let's say, as of a specific day and of a specific time. So I would go back to 2009 when we had the financial crisis. And basically from everything from that point on is on the table. So you have that budget in 2009, all that's there, but you want to make sure you set your priorities. Your police, your fire, your nurses, your health, those should all be fully funded. Everything else is on the table to be cut. And one thing that's very important, all revenue generating departments need to audit their revenues, because I guarantee you they're not bringing in the revenues that they can. When I worked with the assessor's office years ago, I mean, we brought in hundreds of millions of dollars to the city that were missed. When I first came into the office back then, I became an expert in possessory interest, which was when government-owned property, when private parties use government-owned property, they're subject to a property tax.
What do you mean they were missed? Sorry to interrupt.
They were missed. I'll give you, well, they were missed or too political to assess. So when I went into the office, I basically did an audit of possessory interest where I went through files, and I remember particularly one file said, "Do not assess too political, Dick Congisto." So what I did is we did an audit of possessory interest, and we were picking up shipping lines, cruise lines. We were picking up advertising, concessions. We were picking up naming rights. We were the first ones to do naming rights in the state of California when we did 3 at Candlestick Park. And I'll give you an example. Right now, Zuckerberg General Hospital, they paid $72 million for the naming rights for the hospital. That's subject to tax. You think that's being picked up? Probably not. Now, they pay that $72 million. That's $750,000 a year that they would pay in taxes. You can go back 8 years. There's $6 million. The Transamerica building has Salesforce up top with the garden. They pay $200 million for that. That's subject to tax, $2 million a year. Well, go back how many years? There you go, 10 million, whatever more dollars.
So who decides on that? Is it the Board of Supervisors?
No, this is basically all departments basically, like the assessor's office is responsible for appraising all real and business property within the city and county of San Francisco. Their job is to be fair and equitable. You know, and I'll give you another example. I got a kick out of this one. When I went to, now the State Board of Equalization, they assess all the utility companies. So let's say PG&E. Now they assess at fair market value, and they are not subject to Prop 13. So they come in every year and assess it. So I went to the State Board, and I asked, how do you appraise PG&E? And this one of the top people there said, well, we do a historic cost approach, less depreciation, and look at revenue. And then I looked at him and I said, well, what's the land value? What's the franchise value? And he looked at me and says, well, it's not there.
Meaning
That's meaning that they weren't picking up the franchise, which is probably another 10 million revenue to the city. They didn't assess that value of the franchise at fair market value. And there's just all this stuff where you audit, you go in, you look at all the various departments, and you make sure they do it. Every time I went into a department, we either streamlined, we found revenues that were missed, and I've identified probably hundreds of millions, and I've gone to the mayor, I've gone to supervisors over the years, and they all say, oh yeah, we know. But not one of them said, well, John, where is it? Show us where we are so we can get this for our city. No. You know?
So you mentioned that some of this is political. How is that? Is it they don't want to bother the entities?
No, a lot of times, I'll give you one with the one that I told you about with the, it's because they have a buddy running a company. And a lot of people don't want to assess it because you deal with the giants. You deal with all the, you know, when you're dealing with you deal with Viacom. You deal with a lot of high profile entities where a lot of times they're missed or they're just oversight. You know, when you look at property, basically every property has a parcel. Okay, here's a parcel. Here is a permit. They're there. Basically, I mean, of course, we picked up a lot of permits that were missed. But with possessory interest, a lot of times is you have to go out there and you gotta, let's say, I remember I walked from Pier 96 all the way down to the port when I was there, all the way to the aquatic park. We were picking up concessions. We were picking up the shipping lines, the stevedoring services, management contracts. We picked up all these things that were just missed. And we were just picking up revenue right and left. And there's still all this revenue out there that's being missed, I guarantee you. You know, so, and then especially what you have to do is you have to audit everything. You have to audit and this is always a big one, the nonprofits, you know, for the homeless. How much is being spent on the homeless? How much is spent on the homeless from fire, police, everything? I mean, what is that? When you look at it all that's spent on the homeless. I mean, there's no accountability. Nobody knows what these nonprofits are doing. How many people are they servicing? What are they doing? But they get the contracts.
Those are city contracts that they're getting, right?
Oh yeah, they have to go to the city, exactly. And that's another thing. You have to, you know, you've seen over the years where the cities got into contracts where they shouldn't have gotten into contracts. There has to be integrity in the contracts. You know, we had a lot of recent high-profile positions that were indicted by the FBI. Mm-hmm. You know, we had Mohammed Nuru and, you know, from the PUC and all, I mean, come on.
What would you say is the solution for this? How would what was the best way for the nonprofits to be audited? Who would do the audit? Was it a city
Well, you have
government?
the controller usually sets the audits. Mm-hmm. You have you know, you could have Harvey Rose look at particular. You have to set standards. You know, I remember the homeless. They did years ago. They had a homeless program that was supposed to connect everybody together. They spent millions and millions of dollars, but all of a sudden you don't hear about it anymore. That was supposed to see how, you know, where do we get these people? How can we get them home? Or how can we get them the correct services? They were supposed to be in a database. I mean, you look at these systems. You look at the school board where they did a $43 million payroll system that they're throwing away. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no accountability. You know, there's so much money being wasted. You have to prioritize. And you know, I think we had a 500 million reserve. Now it's dwindling down because it's been basically paying these deficits off until we're getting to this point where we're at right now.
Critics say that San Francisco is getting what they voted for. Do you agree with that? And is that the way out?
Well, one way to get out is get rid of ranked choice voting. Because probably 70% of the people who are in office right now would have never been in office if there was ranked choice voting. And the prime example is when Chesa Boudin became DA. He ran against 4 other, I think 1, 2, 3 other moderate candidates. But they wiped themselves out, so he became, but if there was a runoff, you see? And this is kind of funny because years ago we used to have a runoff where we got you know, so you would pick the best one you like or the lesser of the 2 evils. But basically, they wanted to do it to save money. So now you have a ranked choice voting, which basically it should be back to the runoffs. But what happens is now you have let's say a supervisor raises $100,000. The city's going to give him $600,000 to help in the campaign. So for every dollar a supervisor, somebody running for office gets, the city gives them $6. That's a gift of public funds to me. This is wrong, and you're dealing with a deficit. You're dealing with a $15 billion deficit, and you're giving people hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a campaign from taxpayer money.
Please explain a little bit for our audience how ranked choice voting works.
Well, ranked choice voting basically does is, let's say there's 5 people running in the race. Mm-hmm. Now, you get to rank them accordingly. Mm-hmm. Now, most people, I would say, you know, my age or, you know, you get 50 or over people, you're voting for the one person you like. You're not voting for 1, 2, 3. See, what happens is you vote for one person and they don't get it. That means your vote doesn't count anymore, which is wrong. To me, that's unconstitutional. You know, that means your vote doesn't count. So what it does is it gets all 5 candidates. So the one with the lower vote count basically gets eliminated, so all the people that they had who voted for a second or third goes into to the next until they keep going down to the first. So it's kind of you know, it's funny. I talk to people every year. People are always confused. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm still confused. How does that work? And we've been doing it for 10 years.
It does sound confusing.
But even to everybody, you know, it's funny when you look at this stuff. I get a kick at a lot of the things I'm telling you.
So it's the first round. There's 5 people.
Yeah.
And then the 5th one
gets knocked out.
Is knocked out.
And
What happens to the next four?
well, it keeps going down. So that fifth person
they
is out.
They don't count
but
again,
all the
though.
ones that were their backup votes go to the ones to the fourth. Then the
Oh,
same
the
thing.
fifth one. Oh, I
all their
see,
votes,
I
like
see.
all their second choices, that if they had it, third
Yeah.
choices go to the other group, the remaining four. So then whoever is the less of the four, their votes goes to the remaining three. And then so on down to the one until somebody gets more than 50 plus 1%. So,
When did this change?
oh, this was, how long ago was this? This is within the last 15 years, I guess. Because I know when Ed Lee initially ran for mayor, there was that ranked choice voting was there. So it's going back maybe around there. So maybe a couple of years before.
Let's talk more about the nonprofits. This is a topic that I think deserves more attention about how much money they have and how they spend the money and how this is being audited. How do these contracts get into the nonprofits' hands? They have a lobbying process?
Well, they apply. They have, there's a system where they apply, and then they're given the contracts. But the whole thing is follow through. It's like every contract. Anybody who's been given a contract, they have to follow. Are they doing their deadlines? Are they, how are they coming about? If somebody goes way back, you keep seeing these contracts like, what is it, the Broadway tunnel, where all of a sudden they're billions over contract. Well, if the billions over contract, next time that contractor comes up, he's off the list. When somebody doesn't meet the, keep the constraints of the contract, they don't make their deadlines. It's just.
Is that a good example? The Chinatown subway station, how much it was over budget and over time.
Exactly over time, and it's always the case because the people know. If you do a low ball offer, let's just get in the door. Then we can do the change orders. Then we can get this. It's just getting that foot in the door.
Who needs to approve on a change order? Is it someone in the city?
Well, the purchasers does the RFPs and they send them out and whatever the requirements are. But in regard to, I guess, whoever the contract, whatever their agency they're contracting with, is the one responsible for, I guess, for overviewing the contract. I don't know where the controller comes in on that, because the controller's supposed to audit a lot of the franchises, the fees, everything. They're supposed to go into each department every so often, but I don't know. And they pick and choose, I guess, who they want to audit. But they should be auditing the nonprofits. And there's no accountability there. This is why I think so many taxpayers are frustrated, because they've been relying on your politicians and your supervisors. People are, their rents, they're paying their rent, their mortgages, they're raising their families. They're relying on people to do the good job, and people are realizing, look where we're at. The city's in bad shape, but it's great times ahead. That's how I look at it. If we get the right people in, and you start doing what you're supposed to do, be fiscally sound, make people accountable. And I love the city.
Well, I can see with a big project like that, like a subway station or a bridge, if you build it halfway,
right,
and you say, "Oh, sorry, I need more money,"
right,
you can't tell them, "Well, no, now
well,
you're
that's
off
how
the
they
contract."
get you. That's how they get you.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
You can't leave it halfway built.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I know there's changes in. You always take into consideration cost of. Like look at the cost of construction over the last couple of years. It's just gone through the roof. For just a board of sheetrock has doubled, and the price of everything, probably even more than that. So, there are exceptions that happen, but there has to be more scrutiny when they do this. I remember the Trans-Bay Terminal, how that went way out of line. It seems like everything is way beyond schedule and way over budgeted. So. Well, over the years, the culture's always changed. The mission used to be Irish. Now it's more Hispanic. I remember when the Castro used to be just devastated until the gay community moved in. Everything's, there's always changing. I guess the big thing now is we like downtown, we're getting into the artificial intelligence. That, before that, it was everything changes. You know, people come and go, but a lot of people left the city because they were disappointed in the city. It's one thing moving out or going, but when you look at the state of the city, when you look at the state of California with the high income tax compared to other places, 16%, you get up to 16% or whatever it is compared to other states which are 0. You know, you see the problems, how the state of California had a surplus 4 or 5 years ago. You know, when you look at where we are and where we are today with the deficit and with the condition of the state, you know, California was the dream state. And San Francisco, you know, I still get sentimental when I drive over the bridge and I see the Golden Gate Bridge and the city, you know, and you see what's happened. So, but things always change.
Yeah. As far as helping the homeless, there's a lot of programs, a lot of money being spent, you know, being shelters or buildings or you know, lodging or whatever. What would you say is the best way to actually help the homeless and not go through these nonprofits who are not accounted for?
You know, go back to the 30s when you go back to Franklin Roosevelt, you know, the New Deal and these things where you know, the Conservation Corps, you get people, you know, you had all these fires throughout the state. You think you couldn't get a group, how many homeless people who you could help to train them to do that? And you know, there's things you can do. You know, there's people hurting and the state could do so much.
Knowing that there's $100,000 spent on the average per homeless in San Francisco. Something is wrong, right?
Oh, it is. It is wrong. You have, the PUC has all the water department land throughout the state of California. Mm-hmm. You could build, I remember how they used to have like Boys Town or Jamestown or whatever, they had the towns where to help people. You move people into a place, you train them, you give them, you know, and the bottom line is when you're down and out, you're broken. Mm-hmm. People get broken over whatever different reasons. Yeah. You got to build them back. You don't give somebody you don't give somebody money without saying, okay, here's some money. Make sure that street's cleaned out in front of you, so they feel like they got a purpose. They're doing something. Yeah. You know, you make people feel important, and that's you make these. I mean, just you give people. It's like the incentive for welfare women. Mm-hmm. They're given money. Here you have money. The more children you get, the more money you get, and you don't want a husband because if you get a husband, you lose your money. Right. I mean, these things got to change. The mentality. You know. Anything else you'd like to add? Well, I'd like to add this housing element that the state did. I mean, it's when the city and county of San Francisco has to have create 83,000 new homes over the next 10 years. I think they have half that are in the pipeline. They have to come up with this other amount. Now, what they're doing is they're going to all these various neighborhoods, and like in my neighborhood, in certain homes now can be, which we're a single-family home, we're 2 stories. Now, in some of the places, you can build 8 stories. Based on this mandate. On this housing, yeah. And then I believe is if you can do that, if you add affordable housing, you might be able to add another 2 stories. It doesn't make any sense. It does in commercial, of course, in commercial strips. That's where they should be. But a lot of the neighborhoods, you have 35th Avenue in the Sunset. You have a lot of different areas that you're going, it doesn't make any sense. You could see somebody basically, and this is another thing. They want us, this was done, this 83,000 was done prior to the pandemic. San Francisco's lost probably 100,000 people in population. There's 30 to 40,000 vacant units in the city. They want us to build this. Did they talk about infrastructure? How about the infrastructure of the city? How's its effect on the infrastructure of the city? How about the water? How do we handle all the water? We're dealing with droughts all the time. I can see somebody just sitting there at a desk saying, okay, and you know they didn't come out to look at the areas when they did. You know, they didn't come out there. You look at some of them, you go, you see, you could just picture somebody at a desk saying, okay, you know, here's a hub, here's a station, here's, let's say, Forest Hill Station. Let's go a couple of blocks over and you could build 8 stories. Say, hey, you know, you have single family homes over there. I mean, there's no logic to a lot of this stuff. You know, they just had a certain number they had to do. This has to be revisited. You know? And also, San Francisco's 49 square miles. We're not Los Angeles. We're not San Diego. I mean, it doesn't make sense to all this housing. And what this does in these certain areas, it ruins the character of the neighborhoods. I know they're talking about doing some of that on Lombard Street. Lombard Street, almost you have eight
Iconic.
Yeah, and you're going in there. Then you're looking out from Pacific Heights. You're looking out from Cow Hollow. You're looking down. You look at what the hell are you doing? They talk about the I forget what it's Montana West or whatever at the end of Geary where these huge buildings were made. But I mean, it's absurd what they want to do, but they have to. They got to get it done. They got to get it done. And they're not giving neighborhood. A lot of times now they're getting rid of neighborhood notice because they want to be able to push these things through. Now there's a property at 250 Laguna Honda that they wanted to put some housing in for. A lot of the neighbors were worried because it's on liquefaction. And there was the slides on the hill coming down. So it nipped it in the bud. But now it's back, because they need the housing. So now they can push things through without the neighborhood notice. There's no planning. Like right now, we had a planning. We came out of a pandemic. We have no plan. We're the last when it comes to coming out of the pandemic in our downtown. Out of all these cities, we're the last. Why? Because we don't have vision. We don't have direction. We have people who are in office looking, where do I want to go? What's my next step? Oh, I want to go to the assembly. But few are there. What is the best interest of San Francisco? How do we make San Francisco the greatest city again? Not what I'm about. That's what's happened. Years ago, supervisors used to be businessmen, businesswomen. They used to come. They were giving back to the city. Now people are taking. What can I get? What benefit can I get? Where can I go? It's a whole different mentality than it was years ago. That's one of the changes I see, because people were coming after they've raised their family, after they've done things. Now they're coming in, after school or what they're learning. It's totally different. They were there to give back, not to take, and that's what you see a lot of times, all throughout the political spectrum.
And it sounds like a lot of the people in charge or in the positions of making decisions are not qualified for making those decisions.
Oh yeah, they aren't. They aren't. See, in good times, you don't have to worry about that. But in bad times, I don't want to name people. But when you look at their backgrounds and you look at they were political appointees, they shouldn't be there. Basically, you're paying people to be figureheads. They're not needed. Probably departments could get a couple of steps ahead if they weren't even there. They're not needed. But that's part of the game. So, if you had some of the right people in there, looking at the revenues and looking at things like this, totally different animal.
John, thank you so much for your time. I
You're welcome.
Being on our program.
No, I'm passionate about this. I just want to say one last thing before I go.
Yeah.
I want to thank all the policemen, all the firemen, all the nurses, all the muni people, all these people who are just so vital to providing our services. They deserve especially the police over the last couple of years. We need you. We need you. You are so important to us, for our safety, and we're there for you. We've always been there for you. Maybe the politicians haven't been, but the people out there have always been behind you. So we need you. And just thank God for this wonderful country, and for everything we have. And we're so blessed to be where we're at. So
thank you.
You're very welcome.